Dylan Whyte wins a 12-round unanimous decision over Joseph Parker. Only two things surprised me about this fight. Everything else went pretty much as I envisioned it would. But the two things that surprised me, one, were the fact that Dylan Whyte was able to win the fight on points by a comfortable margin, because I felt like whoever wins this fight on points, and I predicted it would go to points. I didn't pick a winner, but I did predict it would go to points. I thought that was the most likely outcome. But I felt like whoever won it on points would win it by a round or two, that it would be razor close. I was even privately thinking it might be a split decision. But no, Dylan Whyte actually won it fairly comfortably. I think one of the judges had him winning it by a point, but the other two had it wider. And if it wasn't for the fact that he got dropped in the 12th, it would have been wider still. So that's to surprise me that he won it so comfortably. On the scorecards, it wasn't a comfortable fight for him. It was a tough fight, but on the scorecards, it was fairly comfortable and it was unanimous. And the other thing that surprised me was the fact that Dylan Whyte was able to drop Joseph Parker. Now, Parker's never really been hit clean by anybody that can properly bang. I know he's been in there with Anthony Joshua, etc., but he'd never really been hit clean by Joshua in that fight. And they say Parker has never been down as an amateur or pro, and he did fight at a decent level in the amateurs. So the fact that Dylan Whyte was able to drop him and drop him clean, because there were 3 knockdowns in the fight. Parker was down twice, but the first knockdown was some BS. That wasn't a real knockdown. There was a clash of heads and Dylan Whyte simultaneously landed a body shot and Parker kind of slipped. So that wasn't really a knockdown, but I can't blame the ref. Maybe it looked like a punch from his angle, but that wasn't a real knockdown. But the knockdown that occurred in, God, what was it, the 9th round? Let me check what round that was. That doesn't even say on here, but I think the knockdown occurred in the 9th round, the real knockdown where Dylan Whyte caught Joseph Parker with that left hook and Parker went down. He wasn't seriously hurt, but it definitely got his attention. He was definitely buzzed and it was definitely a legitimate knockdown. That surprised me. I did not expect Dylan Whyte to be able to drop Parker like that with a single clean punch. But other than that, the fight went as I expected, to be honest with you, in terms of the pattern of the fight. Because I said in, several pre-fight talks that Dylan Whyte has the better hand skills of the two. I talked about Dylan Whyte's catch and shoot, where he will block a shot and he'll counter with the same hand. That's something Dylan Whyte does consistently. It's been part of his game for a very, very long time. That's how he hurt Anthony Joshua. He blocked Joshua's right hand and countered with the hook. Same thing here against Parker. Now, he was trying it early on in the first couple rounds, but he was missing wildly with his counters because Parker was just so much faster. But as the fight progressed and the pace slowed, Dylan Whyte's catch and shoot started working more and more and more. And then in the 9th round, as I just described, it was exactly that which dropped Joseph Parker. It was a catch and shoot from Dylan Whyte. He blocked a Parker shot and immediately countered with the left hook, and down went Joseph Parker. So those are the kind of hand skills I'm talking about from Dylan Whyte. Joseph Parker don't pull off moves like that. Joseph Parker relies more on just athleticism. He's not doing anything particularly sophisticated with his hands. He's just pot shotting here and there, a few jabs, few body shots, but there's no real science behind what Joseph Parker does with his hands. There's no real boxing mechanics behind it. It's just athleticism and pot shotting for the most part. Whereas with Dylan Whyte, there's an actual science there to what he's doing. You throw a shot to his left side, he's going to counter with a left. You throw a shot to his right side, he's going to counter with a right. He sets things up. He'll go to the body and then, with a jab and then come up top to the head. There's misdirection there from Dylan Whyte. He'll do one, make you think he's going to go one place and then go the other place. And people often miss it with Whyte because of the fact that his technique looks so sloppy so often. His balance is often so poor and he is quite slow. So people seem to be blind to the skillful things he's actually doing in there. But he has a lot of hand skills. But as I mentioned pre-fight, his feet leave a lot to be desired. Poor balance, pretty poor footwork, but hand skills are good. Good jab as well. That was another thing I talked about pre-fight. If Joseph Parker stands in front of Dylan Whyte too long, he's going to start getting popped with a jab because Joseph Parker is very upright. And that's what was happening. The longer the fight went on, the more Joseph Parker was getting hit, the more Dylan Whyte's jab was a factor in the fight. Dylan Whyte's body punching was good. Both guys were landing to the body, but Dylan Whyte was the more consistent with it. And once again in this fight, we have to question Joseph Parker's desire. I don't want to say the guy's got no heart, because once or twice I did say it, during the fight online, but I don't want to say he's got no heart, but he's maybe just not got enough devil in him. He's not got enough tenacity, not enough killer instinct in him to be successful long term at this level. Maybe he's just too much of a nice guy, because his athleticism was way better than Dylan Whyte's athleticism. He was so much faster, it was ridiculous. I mean, in the first round, it looked like Dylan Whyte was in slow motion and Joseph Parker was in fast forward. The speed gap was insane. A guy with all that athleticism, it's just a shame he doesn't have the meanness in him to really capitalize on that. And that was to Dylan Whyte's advantage, because Dylan Whyte does have meanness. Dylan Whyte is a mean dude. and he makes up for the lack of athleticism, the lack of coordination, the poor balance by having good hand skills, being tactically aware. He's a smart guy. Yeah, he knows what positions he needs to be in and all that kind of stuff. He knows what to do from a technical point of view, Dylan Whyte. It's just his coordination is poor and his balance is often poor, but he understands the mechanics of boxing and how to get certain shots landed. He just doesn't always have the athleticism to pull it off. But yeah, as the fight progressed, Joseph Parker just was disappointing once again with his lack of urgency. He eventually went for it. I mean, he went for it in small spots in the second half of the fight, but only really went for it properly in the 12th round. And he nearly got Dylan Whyte out of there. That's when the third knockdown of the fight occurred. Dylan Whyte got hurt by a couple shots. Dylan Whyte was exhausted. Dylan Whyte was exhausted from about the 7th or 8th round. Both of them were exhausted. But Dylan Whyte just had more desire. So he got clipped in the 12th. And he was under a barrage of punches, and he eventually took a knee. Wisely. And it looked as though he might be snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, because he seemed, dead on to get a decision. But that knockdown happened, and there were very, very anxious moments for Team Whyte in the dying seconds of the fight. So he managed to hold on. He showed the veteran survival skills that he's picked up over the years, and he took a deserved points decision. I was actually quite amazed. I saw some people online after 7 rounds acting like Joseph Parker was putting on a masterclass. I mean, I don't know what fight they were watching. They were saying, oh, Whyte's balance is terrible. Yeah, it is terrible. But that don't mean he was losing the fight. Are you looking at who's actually landing punches? Or are you just, ranting and raving about somebody's balance? No, look at who's actually landing the punches. And through the first 7 rounds, it was a very close competitive fight. And Dylan Whyte really took over in the second half, with the second knockdown. First knockdown shouldn't have been counted, but the second knockdown was definitely legit. And just his work rate and his desire and his jab in the second half of the fight, and his catch and shoot left hooks, all that kind of stuff. And his rough and tumble tactics up close. He got down and dirty when he had to, pushed Joseph Parker around, made him feel like you're in a dogfight. And Joseph Parker just doesn't respond well when somebody pulls him into a dogfight like that. And that is something that's disappointing about him, because he is so talented in terms of his speed and athleticism and sharpness and all that, combination punching ability. But just, the guy needs more, he needs more dog in him, as they like to say in the United States, just needs a bit more grit and determination and meanness. Just comes across as too nice. It seems to be a running theme throughout his career. So yeah, Dylan Whyte wins the decision. Again, I was back and forth in terms of who I thought was going to win up until literally today. And eventually today I said, pre-fight, that I don't know who's going to win. I'm sitting on the fence. And maybe now you can see why I was sitting on the fence to some extent. Because it was competitive. But Dylan Whyte's heart and Dylan Whyte's better hand skills told in the end. So hats off to Dylan Whyte. Great win for his resume. A great name to put in the W column for him. And he goes on to bigger and better things. The interviewer after the fight asked him about the Anthony Joshua rematch. Asked him would he take it in April if Deontay Wilder don't take it. And he was non-committal. He said he would like another fight before then. which is understandable. And then we'll see whether he takes it. You know, Dylan Whyte lost to Anthony Joshua first time around, so obviously he knows how tough fighting Anthony Joshua is going to be, because Joshua has improved and he wants to give himself the absolute best opportunity possible if that rematch comes around. So yeah, he wants another fight. He don't want to be inactive between now and April. So we'll see if Eddie Hearn can get him out again. And if he does, who's he going to put Dylan Whyte in with? That's a question I'll leave for you guys to answer. But in the end, it was a good heavyweight fight. And in fact, if the undercard fights weren't so good, people might be talking about this as a potential fight of the year. Or heavyweight fight of the year, should I say. People would be talking about this as a potential heavyweight fight of the year. But the undercard fights were incredible. The Chisora Takan fight, I mean, that's one of the best heavyweight fights I've seen in years. So this main event was going to have to go a very long way to try and top that. And it didn't top the undercard fights. Certainly didn't top the Chief Support. But it was still a decent heavyweight fight. So, yeah. Let me know how you feel in the comments. Is this the fight you expected? Were you one of those people who are picking Joseph Parker to blast Dylan Whyte out? I saw a lot of people picking Joseph Parker just wipe Dylan Whyte out. And as I said pre-fight, I always felt like Joseph Parker had the power to hurt Dylan Whyte, which he did. Although he only hurt Whyte in the 12th when Whyte was very tired. But I always felt he had the power to hurt Whyte. But I just felt like the people who are picking Parker to blast Whyte out and totally humiliate him, I think they're really underestimating Dylan Whyte's savvy, because he's quite a savvy fighter. He's clever in there, Dylan Whyte. Even though he looks sloppy and stuff like that, he's clever. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to anticipate what you're going to do better than most people give him credit for. That's how he's able to counter so well. You know, as soon as you throw anything at him, David Hay mentioned this. If you were watching the Sky Sports feed, David Hay mentioned post-fight that that's something Dylan Whyte does very, very well. That's his thing, is the catch and shoot. Anything you throw at Dylan Whyte, he's immediately countering you from the same side. If you hit him on the left side, he's countering with the left straight away. They don't always land, but that mechanism is always there in Dylan Whyte. It's totally ingrained into his boxing DNA to counter immediately, you know, and it's a very good skill to have. So people underestimate that. And I also think people were not looking at the fact that Joseph Parker is not really a prolific puncher at this kind of level. He's only ever knocked out journeymen and has-beens and people like that. He's beaten some good men, but he hasn't knocked him out or even come close to knocking him out in past fights. You know, he didn't come close to knocking out Takam or Andy Ruiz. And obviously he lost to Joshua. So I think people were just not being realistic about Joseph Parker's ability as a puncher. Yeah, he can hit hard, but he's not really a guy who goes out there and puts his neck on the line to try and get a knockout. And he was going to have to do that against Dylan Whyte. You know, and he eventually did it in the 12th, but it was too little too late. So yeah, I thought that if somebody was going to get knocked out, it would be Whyte in this fight. But at the same time, I said that I think it's going to go the distance. I don't think it will be a knockout. I think it will go the distance. And I was surprised, I have to be honest, that Whyte was able to drop Parker like that. But I also did say pre-fight that if Whyte does drop or hurt Parker, he won't be able to finish him off. I don't think he's quick enough to be able to finish Parker off. And he wasn't able to finish him off. But I was surprised that he was able to drop him with one shot like that, especially late in the fight when Whyte himself was tired and he wasn't punching with the same power in the 9th round that he was punching with in the, you know, early part of the fight. So yeah, as I say, the pattern of the fight was what I expected, but I was surprised Dylan Whyte won it as comfortably as he did on the cards. And again, another disappointing showing from Joseph Parker in terms of the desire. And yeah, anyway, let me stop repeating myself and waffling here. Let me know how you guys felt about the fight. Who would you like to see Dylan Whyte fight next? What did you think of Joseph Parker's performance? Were you deeply disappointed? Did you expect more from him, particularly following the Joshua fight, where he needed to show killer instinct in that fight and didn't produce the goods? Has he done the same here? Have you lost faith in Joseph Parker? Are you washing your hands of him and writing him off altogether? And what do you think of Dylan Whyte? I think most people's view of Dylan Whyte is that he is a guy who has a hell of a lot of heart. He's very tenacious, he's very tough, but his athleticism, his balance, his coordination are all quite poor. And so I think a lot of people look at him as an overachiever. But as I say, you know, I just said I wouldn't repeat myself, but just to finish off, don't sleep on Dylan Whyte's hand skills. Yeah, watch closely what he's actually doing. There is skill there in what he does with his hands. Not so much his feet, but his hands, there's skill there, and his jab is consistent. He ain't got a Larry Holmes jab, but he keeps throwing it. When he's tired, when you're tired, when it's late in the fight, he keeps pumping the jab out. And it gives you something to think about. It makes you have to reset and all that. Anyway, yeah, let me know how you feel in the comments. I'm out.